The man who saw too much. It was a crisp October evening when Matt Dunn, an aspiring filmmaker, an amateur UFO enthusiast, began the drive back from a solo camping trip deep in the Nevada desert. The barren landscape had always held a strange appeal to him, a place of solitude where the world felt both endless and isolating. Matt had spent the weekend filming time lapses of the night sky for a documentary he was working on. He'd hoped the trip might also yield a little luck, a chance of sighting of something unusual. But nothing had prepared him for what he was about to witness, or prepared him for his life was about to change. As he crested on a hill, on a lonely stretch of highway, a flash of light in his peripheral vision caught his attention. At first, he thought it was a plane flying low, but as he slowed his car, he realized it wasn't a plane at all. The object hovered silently in the valley below, shimmering like liquid metal. It was enormous, at least the size of a football field, its surface pulsating with a faint bioluminescent light that moved in organic patterns. Matt pulled over, his heart racing. He grabbed his camera and scrambled out of the car, stumbling down the embankment for a closer look. That's when he saw them. 3 tall, slender figures stepping out of the craft. Their movements were fluid, almost unnaturally synchronized. They appeared humanoid, but their limbs were elongated, their skin a faint translucent gray that seemed to absorb the light around them. Matt's hands shook as he filmed the scene. He could feel the hum of the craft vibrating in his chest, a low frequency that made his teeth ache. The things stood in a circle, seemingly communicating without words. Telepathy. Occasionally, one would glance in his direction, and though they made no move to approach, Mount felt an inexplicable terror creep over him. After nearly 20 minutes, the beings returned to the craft, and without a sound, it shot into the sky and vanished. The valley was plunged into silence. He stood there, just hearing the wind, silent. Back in his car, Matt could barely contain his excitement. His camera's display showed crystal clear footage, proof of extraterrestrial life. He drove home in a haze, his mind racing with possibilities. This was it, the discovery that would change everything. As soon as he got home, he transferred the footage to his laptop and uploaded it to a private cloud for safekeeping. He even emailed snippets of the video to himself as an extra precaution. Then, unable to resist, he shared a single frame on a private UFO forum, teasing what he had just captured. The response was immediate. Comments flooded in, demanding more details. Some calling him a hoaxer, others urging caution. Matt didn't sleep that night. He stayed up, watching the footage over and over. Imagine how the world would react when he finally revealed the full video. But by morning, everything was gone. How? When he opened his laptop, the folder containing the footage was empty. His cloud storage had been wiped clean, and even the emails he'd sent himself had vanished. He checked his camera, but the memory card had been corrupted, showing nothing but static. His heart sank. How was this possible? He tried logging into the UFO forum to explain what had happened, but his account had been suspended. Confused and panicked, he called his best friend, Rob, and told him everything.
Matt, you're freaking out.
Rob said after a long silence.
Are you sure you didn't imagine it? You've been out there alone for days. Maybe the isolation messed with your head. Come on, dude.
Imagine it, Matt snapped. I filmed it. I had proof.
Then where is it?
Rob asked gently. He stayed quiet. I'm just gonna let you go, okay? I gotta go. Matt hung up, feeling like no one would believe him. Who would? Later that night, there was a knock at the door. Matt peered through the peephole and froze. Two men in black suits stood on his porch. They looked ordinary at first glance, but something about them was off. Their skin was too pale. Their expressions too neutral. Matt opened the door cautiously. Can I help you? The taller man spoke first. His voice was monotone, his words clipped.
Mr. Dunn? We're here about the incident you witnessed last night. May we come in?
Matt hesitated.
What incident?
The shorter man smiled faintly.
There's no need to lie, Mr. Dunn. We know what you saw.
I don't know what you're talking about, Matt said, his palms sweating. The taller man tilted his head, his dark eyes blinking.
Forget it, Mr. Dunn. For your own good.
Before Matt could respond, the men turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows. When he stepped outside to watch them leave, they were gone. From that night on, Matt's life began to unravel. The men in black were everywhere, watching him from parked cars, standing across the street, even disappearing in the grocery store. Their presence was always silent, always unnerving. Desperate to move, desperate to prove he wasn't crazy, Matt tried posting his story online again, but every post was deleted within minutes. His accounts were mysteriously deactivated, and when he created new ones, they were banned just as quickly. No matter what he did, it was as if an unseen hand was erasing him from the digital world. His friends and family grew distant. Rob stopped answering his calls, and even his sister, who had always supported him, began to avoid him.
Matt, you need help,
she said during their last conversation.
You're spiraling.
blackouts started shortly after. Matt would wake up disoriented, hours or even days later, with no memory of where he had been. Once he woke up in his car, parked miles from his home, with strange scratches on his arms. Other time, he found his laptop smashed and his hard drives missing. One night, Matt set up a series of cameras around his home, determined to catch whatever or whoever was tormenting him. He stayed awake, clutching his baseball bat, his heart pounding with every creak and groan of the house. At 3:13, his cameras went dead. The lights flickered and died, plunging the house into darkness. Then he heard it, a low hum, growing louder and louder until it felt like the walls were vibrating. A knock came at the door. Matt froze. The hum intensified, drowning out his thoughts. Slowly, he approached the door and peeked through the peephole. The men in black stood there, their faces emotionless. Behind them, the night sky was bathed in an unnatural glowing light. "You've been chosen," the taller man said when Matt opened the door. His voice was devoid of inflection, more like a machine than a man. Matt tried to slam the door, but it wouldn't budge. The men stepped inside as if the barrier didn't exist. His body froze, his limbs locked in place. He wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The light outside grew brighter, flooding the room. The last thing Matt saw was the men stepping aside as a beam of light enveloped them. When the sun rose, Matt was gone. His house was untouched. His belongings left exactly where they had been. His car sat in the driveway, his keys still on the counter. People speculated he had fled, unable to cope with his delusions, but strange details lingered. The scorch marks on his lawn, the electromagnetic interference that plagued the neighborhood, and the faint hum that seemed to echo in the air for days. Matt's story faded into obscurity, dismissed as the ramblings of a troubled mind. Yet, in the years that followed, campers in Nevada, the desert especially, occasionally reported strange lights in the sky where he had once seen them. Some claim to hear faint whispers carried on the wind, static-like voices calling out in the dark, and some swore they saw a man in the shadows, watching them with glowing eyes. Three years had passed since Matt Dunn disappeared. In that time, his friends and family had mourned him, especially resigning themselves to the idea that he was gone forever. But life has a strange way of bending reality. A man named Derek Harlow arrived in Spring Ridge, Oregon, on an unremarkable Tuesday morning. He carried a small duffel bag, wore clothes that seemed too new, and spoke with the cadence of someone who had practiced their lines. He rented a small apartment above a laundromat, got a job at the local hardware store, and became part of the fabric of the town in a matter of weeks. Derek didn't know who he was, or who he thought he was. But all he knew was, for some reason, he had to make a new start. The dream started subtly. Images of stars, too bright and too close, and a low hum that seemed to vibrate through his bones. Derek would wake up drenched in sweat, his heart pounding. At first, he dismissed them as nightmares, but the dreams became more vivid. He saw a desert road, a camera shaking in his hands, and beings with elongated limbs and featureless faces. In one dream, he stood in a room filled with pale men in black suits. They were speaking to him, but their voices were distorted, like a cassette tape unraveling. Derek began noticing odd details in his waking life. The smell of the desert, though he hadn't been there or near one in years. A flash of recognition when he passed certain strangers on the street, though he couldn't place them. Once, while walking home, a child pointed at him and said, "That man looks different," though the parents quickly hushed the boy. The memories didn't surface all at once. They came in fragments, disjointed and chaotic, like a shattered mirror reflecting pieces of his former life. What were they? Who was he? These are thoughts he had all the time. One evening, Derek was reorganizing the hardware store's inventory when he accidentally cut his hand on a box cutter. He stared at the blood pooling on his palm, and something clicked. In his mind's eye, he saw himself gripping a camera, filming a UFO hovering slightly over the ground above the desert. Silently, he remembered the electric charge in the air, the trembling in his hands, and the surreal moment when figures emerged from the craft. The memory hit him like a tidal wave, leaving him breathless. He stumbled backward, his vision blurring as more images flooded his mind. He saw himself strapped to a table under blinding lights, the hum of an alien machine filling the air. He heard voices, not human voices, whispering to him, erasing his thoughts, replacing them with new ones. He wasn't Derek Harlow. What's my name? What am I seeing? My name is Matt. My name is Matt. My name is Matt Dunn. The next day, two men in black suits appeared in the hardware store. They didn't speak to him or ask questions. They simply stood at the end of the aisle, their faces blank and their eyes cold. Derek, or as he just remembered, Matt, felt his stomach drop. They did nothing, and then they left. That night, he saw their car parked across from his apartment. They didn't come inside, but their presence was suffocating. He knew they were waiting for him to slip up. Desperation clawed at him, like an animal, shoved into a corner and forced into its primal setting. He had to understand why they'd let him live, why they'd constructed this false life for him, and what their ultimate goal was. But more than that, he needed to stop them. The memories led him to answers he didn't know he possessed. Coordinates surfaced in his mind, numbers he had no reason to know, but which felt as familiar as his own name. As they all came to his mind's eye, he pieced them together, the fragments of his past, until they pointed to a remote location in Nevada where he had once lived. Matt drove through the night, his borrowed car bouncing over potholes as he neared the facility. It was hidden deep in the desert, a squat, windowless building surrounded by fences and surveillance cameras. The air buzzed with an unnatural energy that made his skin prickle. Slipping past the guards wasn't easy, but Matt proved with the precision of someone who had done this before. He didn't know how he knew the patrol routes or where the blind spots were, but his instincts carried him through. The facility was a labyrinth of sterile white hallways and dimly lit rooms. Behind some of the doors, Matt heard muffled voices and the faint hum of machinery. He peeked into one room and saw a man sitting in a chair, his head encased in a strange metal device. The man's face was slack, his eyes vacant, as if his mind had been drained, ready for new memories. Was this him at one point, he thought? Oh God. At the heart of the facility, Matt found a massive chamber filled with alien machinery. The centerpiece was a glowing sphere suspended in midair, its surface swirling with energy. Monitors lined the walls, each displaying the lives of people like him, lives that had been rewritten, manipulated, and controlled. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. The men in black weren't just erasing memories. They were creating entire realities, molding people into whatever roles suited their agenda. As Matt approached the glowing sphere, the men in black stepped out of the shadows.
You shouldn't have remembered,
one of them said, his voice emotionless and flat.
Why did you let me live?
Matt demanded, his voice trembling with both fear and anger.
You were an experiment,
the taller man replied.
A test to see how far we could go. But now you become a liability to us.
Matt gritted his teeth.
You can't keep doing this to people. It ends here.
The shorter man tilted his head, his expression unreadable.
You misunderstood, Mr. Dunn. It doesn't matter what you do. The truth will always be buried. Your sacrifice will mean nothing.
Matt didn't hesitate. He grabbed a crowbar from his bag and swung it at the sphere with all his strength. The first blow sent a shower of sparks flying. The second blow cracked its surface, releasing a pulse of energy that knocked him backward. The alarm spared. The alarms blared, and the room was bathed in red light. The hum of the machine grew louder, rising to an ear-splitting crescendo.
You'll die with it.
The tall man said calmly, as if discussing the weather. Matt pulled himself to his feet, coughing as smoke filled the air.
Better me than let you guys ruin more lives, just like you've ruined mine. You made everyone think I was crazy. You turned everybody against me, even my own family. The least I could do is take you guys with me. I'm done with this. Plus, at least I get to go out the hero.
The machine began to destabilize, the energy inside it swirling violently. Matt knew he had seconds to live. He took one final swing, shattering the core. The explosion was blinding, even from 50 miles away. It's almost as if Nevada had a sun on the ground for 5 seconds. Matt Dunn, who knows what happened to him? But in a small town across the country, people began waking up with fragments of memories they couldn't explain. Memories of their lives, of strange lights in the sky, and of faceless men in black suits. People were waking up, almost as if what Matt had done had shattered the mainframe of the Men in Black's control. The Men in Black were gone, their operations dismantled, but the scars they left behind lingered, a reminder of the power they once held and the man who gave everything to stop them. The explosion at Facility 11 was devastating. By morning, there was nothing left but a smoldering crater in the desert, the kind of wreckage most would dismiss as an industrial accident. For the Men in Black, however, the fallout was more complicated. Matt Dunn, their prime experiment, was officially erased again. They deleted his records from every database, scrubbed his fingerprints from every system, and altered the memories of anyone who might remember him. Friends and family awoke with hazy recollections, unable to place his name or his face. His childhood photos vanished from albums, and even his old social media accounts returned user not found errors. But this time, something was different. What the Men in Black somehow didn't know was that Matt had survived the explosion. Shielded by an alcove during the blast, he crawled away from the wreckage, battered and broken, but alive. The desert stretched endlessly around him, the stars overhead eerily silent. He should have felt victorious, but something gnawed at him, a nagging sense that there were more of the Men in Black than he understood. Why had they let him live before?
Why did they risk so much secrecy? And most importantly, why did their actions feel less like blind oppression and more like controlled order? Matt vowed to find out. Then he collapsed in the middle of the desert. If the blast didn't kill him, maybe the freezing Nevada winds would. It took Matt months to recover. He lived off the grid, moving between ghost towns and abandoned buildings, piecing together the fragments of his memories and gathering intelligence. The Men in Black's operations were as impenetrable as they seemed. Rumors, fragments of leaked files, and whispers from insiders began to paint a clearer picture. The government had no idea who the Men in Black were. They weren't part of them. Nor were they human. They were something older and far more alien than the creatures Matt had filmed in the desert. Using his stolen knowledge, Matt infiltrated one of their regional bases, disguised as a low-level technician. The facility was vast, hidden underneath a mountain, with corridors that seemed to stretch endlessly. The deeper he ventured, the more surreal it became. Walls pulsated with energy, as if alive. The technology beyond human understanding hummed with an almost sentient awareness. In a secure chamber at the heart of the facility, Matt found what he had been searching for: a massive archive of information. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, a repository of humanity's history, alien civilizations, and something even more unsettling. The Men in Black were nothing more than custodians. Their mission was not to suppress humanity, but to protect it from the knowledge it wasn't ready to handle. Earth. Oh, Earth, as Matt learned, was not a solitary planet, but a critical node in an intergalactic network. The species humanity called aliens were refugees, diplomats, and sometimes enemies. The Men in Black were tasked with maintaining balance, ensuring that humanity's fragile psyche wasn't shattered by the weight of the unknown. In a recording, he heard one of them explain,
"Humanity is too young. Its potential is limitless, but its fragility is equally profound. If the veil is lifted too soon, and consequences will be catastrophic. Not just for Earth, and also the entire network."
oh my god. So they're not the bad guys. Maybe they are just trying to protect us from ourselves.
But it wasn't just altruism. The Men in Black had also had their own agenda, one rooted in survival. Their species had once been like humanity, reckless and naive, and it cost them everything. They saw Earth as a chance to protect not only humans, but also themselves from repeating history. As Matt processed
The enormity of this revelation, an alarm blared. His infiltration had been discovered. 2 agents cornered him, their movements inhumanely precise. But instead of erasing him, they brought him before their leader, a figure who radiated authority and something Matt could only describe as timelessness.
You've seen too much,
the leader said, their voice resonating in Matt's skull more than his ears. I needed to know, Matt shot back. Why hide the truth? Why manipulate us? If humanity is so fragile, how can we ever grow? The leader's expression didn't change, but Matt felt a wave of regret emanate from them.
You misunderstand. Growth must be gradual. Evolution is delicate. You've seen what happens when the veil is lifted too quickly. Panic, violence, collapse. We are not your enemies, Matt Dunn. We are your guardians.
They offered him a chance. Join them and become part of the effort to protect Earth, or destroy their largest base, a facility housing critical intergalactic negotiations, and risk plunging humanity into chaos. Matt wrestled with the decision. Joining the Men in Black meant giving up his autonomy, erasing what little remained of his old life, and becoming complicit in their manipulations. Destroying the facility, however, meant unleashing chaos on a global scale, possibly dooming humanity to an early and violent awakening. He thought the people he loved, people who no longer remembered him. He thought of the lives the Men in Black had altered, the lies they had perpetrated. But he also thought of the alien refugees, the fragile balance of the network, and the consequences of his actions. He finally spoke. If humanity is going to survive, it has to be because we're ready. Not because you forced us into ignorance. But I won't destroy the future. Just to make a point. I'll join you, but on one condition. The leader tilted their head.
What is your condition?
You stop erasing people like me. If someone learns the truth and can handle it, let them. Let humanity take those steps when it's ready, not when it's convenient for you.
The leader considered his words. Agreed. Matt became an agent of the Men in Black. He never stopped advocating for humanity's independence. He worked within their ranks, pushing for transparency where it was possible, and carefully planting the seeds of readiness in key figures and organizations. The work was slow, painstaking, and often thankless, but Matt found purpose in it. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was shaping the future. And in the quiet months, when he looked up at the stars, he wondered if humanity would ever be ready to face the universe. If they were, it would be because people like him had fought to give them a chance.